All right. I just wanted to welcome everybody into this video that I have, this interview that I have with a wonderful person that I'm a fan of on YouTube. Charisse of the Sci-Fi Savage has agreed to come on and talk to me about Star Trek. I've watched her videos for, I'd say, over a year. I love your little shorts and the way that your humor is. And also, I'm just very curious about how you became a Star Trek fan. So, welcome to the show, and of course, you pick it up wherever you like. How did you become a Star Trek fan?
Yeah, thank you so much, Gray. Thank you for having me on your channel. I'm super excited to talk Trek and my love of Trek. And we were actually talking off camera about how we both love other people who just love Star Trek, like all the
Oh my
things,
goodness.
right? Without having to defend or fight, just love it, just enjoy it. Yeah, my journey started like quite a few other people I've discovered over the years, with where I first fell in love with this show. I was a kid and my parents loved Trek. My parents loved Star Trek, the original series back in the 60s. So when I was a kid, TNG came out. So that was like the reboot. And my mom was like, "You got to watch this show. You'll love it." First, she tried to get me to watch TOS. She was always trying to get me to watch some old stuff. And I was very against that as a kid. I was like, "It's old. I won't watch it. You can't make me." Like, I was so against it. So when TNG
Was
came out, it
wait,
was
I'm
so
sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, but what were there any older shows that you did like? Because when I was younger, I liked things like The Dukes of Hazzard. I was into like Mork and Mindy. I was into like like Happy Days. But those were all things that were like I was born in
that was
'81.
not your
Those were
generation.
things that like that was not my generation, but it would come on reruns, right? And I would watch that in like the mid '80s, right? I was watching in like '84, '85, '86. Um, and so were there any older shows that you were interested in, or you were just completely about the new shows?
I was so set against the older shows. I think the only older shows that I really got into were kind of like the crime dramas because I still am obsessed with those. So like Perry Mason, stuff like that. I was
Okay,
here
yeah,
for
yeah.
it, but I was very just against old stuff for whatever reason. And if it was black and white, then I knew for sure it was old. It was really ridiculous. I don't know where little like 6-year-old me got this from, but I was very against it. And then my mom was like, "Well, try this new one." Right? It's totally new, it's fresh, it's brand new. Give it a try. And I just fell in love with it. I just fell in love with the magic of space travel and aliens, and just all of it was so cool. And it's really funny because during the pandemic, like many people, I too started a podcast. So me and one of my best friends started a podcast. It's called the TNG podcast. It's all about Star Trek TNG, the Next Generation. And it's an episode by episode review. It's like a scene by scene review of every episode of TNG.
Wow.
So as we were going through season one, we were both looking at each other like, why did we like this show? Like season one is so rough and it's not super kid friendly, but I didn't, I was too young to understand a lot of it. But what I did get was they're going on space journeys and like having space battles and, meeting alien races that can shoot electricity from their fingertips. So whatever amount I was able to glean as a kid was enough to just totally capture my imagination. So yeah, got super into it. We started that podcast in 2020, and we also started a social media group on Clubhouse, which was a thing in 2020 when everyone was trapped at home. It was an audio only platform.
Clubhouse. Wow.
Yeah, I
Okay.
know, right? It's like we were just talking about the 80s. Now we're talking about Clubhouse. Dust off that social media platform. But we had at one point about 2,000 people in our club that were meeting multiple times a week just to talk about Star Trek. And it was so fun because growing up, I didn't talk to anyone about Star Trek except for my family because we watched it together. But like I didn't have friends or anything. And even that friend I started the podcast with, we were friends for 10 years before we both discovered that we love Star Trek because we just didn't talk
Hmm.
about it, right? Like it's like Bruno.
Wow.
You just don't talk about Bruno.
I talk about Star Trek every waking moment. My friends get annoyed at the fact that how could anyone be my friend for more than 5 minutes and not know that I'm a hardcore die on the hill Trekkie? Like,
Well,
that's
that's
crazy.
that's who we are now. We have had a transformation through the podcast because we reignited our love not just for Trek but for all of sci-fi, and we kind of came out of the closet in the terms of sci-fi world, and we're just like, this is what we're all about, and it's been really really fun because everywhere I go, it's probably similar to you, somehow Star Trek just comes up everywhere I go, and most of the people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. But every once in a while, you get that person who's like, I'm also mad that they killed Data. And I'm like, right. And then 45 minutes later, we're still talking about how much we hate Nemesis or whatever, you know? And it's just like, it just
You
feels so
hate
homey and
Nemesis too?
comforting.
You
Nemesis?
hate Nemesis too?
Yes, because they killed
Oh,
my favorite character. Well, also, I don't think the story is told very well, but it's mostly because they killed my favorite character. Had they done anything else, I would have been like, well, they tried really hard, but that, like, growing up, I was Data, so I took it personally. I took that
yeah, no,
personally.
for sure. I mean, you said something about season one I kind of want to dig into, which is this idea that Star Trek season ones are normally not good, right? And if you go back through a lot, I mean, okay, let me ask you this question, sort of a Trek question. Which Trek series has the best season one?
That's a really good question. I will say it's not just two things to that answer. It's not just Star Trek, it's any show. Any show has should have better seasons than their first season, right? Because the idea is they are growing, they are getting even better with time, they're figuring things out. So it's not like Star Trek season one always sucks because it's season one. It's just like any show's season one is not going to be as good as season two, three, four. Like it should get better. And if it gets worse, it gets canceled, right? So that's the first part of the answer. The second part is I haven't actually seen all of the Star Treks. I have not seen all of Enterprise. I stopped watching halfway through the first season, so I need to go back and finish watching that. Um, but I've seen, I think, all the rest of them for season one, and I would say season one of TNG is really hit or miss for me. Season one of Voyager is pretty solid because I love Voyager, but it's also pretty repetitive. Like they do
Mhm.
time travel like 6 times in their first 6 episodes. So maybe it's like a personal taste thing. I
I'm
think
a big I'm a big time travel fan too, so
yeah, right? But also you're like I was watching it with my co-host who hadn't seen Voyager before, and so we were watching the first couple episodes and she was like, "Time travel again? Didn't we just do this for the last 2 episodes?" I was like, "Oh yeah. I guess I guess we did." I will say I recently started watching TOS, so thanks mom. I finally gave in. I was like, I need to know the history, my nerd heritage. Like I need to know where it came from. I'm willing to do it. And I am loving season one. I haven't
it
finished.
is.
I'm halfway through, but it's so much fun. Like
Yeah.
it's so much fun. And I'm like, okay, this makes sense why this spawned like 60 more years of awesomeness because it's just the costumes and the colors and the crazy adventures and I mean, it this captures a child's imagination. So I would probably say of all the ones I've seen, um, so far I haven't finished all of season one, but I probably have to give it to TOS as being most like consistently fun.
Right.
And maybe
As
Strange New Worlds in a second.
That's true, and I kind of want to separate not old Trek, but like sort of classic Trek versus
New
new
Trek.
Trek.
Mhm.
And here's the weird thing about that: we didn't have to do that. We didn't used to have to do that. We didn't separate Trek by sort of
Eras?
anthological eras, if you will, And it was, in my opinion, all Trek was Trek. Now you have Kurtzman's Trek, which is what's considered new Trek, and you have Abrams Trek, which is the Kelvin timeline and that sort of stuff. And so I hate the distinction that we have to make with Star Trek now, but I mean, with this many iterations, I understand us having to be clear. What are your thoughts on Deep Space Nine season one? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, I think the distinction probably in our day was between TOS and New Trek at the time because they were back,
Right.
right? We had TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise. They were kind of stacked. So there was
Mhm.
TOS, and then 30 years later, there's like this 4 pack. And then like 30 years later, there's like another 4 pack. So it doesn't make sense to me why they are delineated in people's minds because it's a different era, different kind of like social issues they talk about and things like that. Um, Sorry, what was your question? I totally got on a tangent with that.
Oh, no, no, just Deep Space Nine
Oh yeah,
season
Deep Space
one
Nine season
compared
one.
to the
Yeah,
other seasons. Yeah.
yeah. So I think season one of which I also recently watched all of Deep Space Nine because I had not watched it in the past. I went from TNG to Voyager. I skipped it, so I recently finished all of Deep Space Nine, and it was so good, Gray. Oh my gosh, like
It's my favorites. It's my favorite Star Trek.
was so good. The end was so satisfying. Easily the most satisfying ending of any Trek ever. Like it was
Yeah.
just
What
chef's
you
kiss.
leave behind, what you
Yes.
leave behind. That first of all, that 6 episode run up to that, the dogs of war, and
Yeah.
when it rains it pours, and it's just it's such a I'm
Come back on
look
screen with me,
it's
Greg.
yeah. I'm very much a D Space Niner, right? Like
Yeah.
I will defend that show to the death. And to your point, you said something earlier, which was that was new Trek at the time. And
Yes.
I'm old enough to remember all of the Trek purists who told
Yes.
me that Deep Space Nine wasn't Star Trek, that Voyager wasn't Star
Voyager
Trek
wasn't
because it
Star
took
Trek because the
place, it
captain's a
didn't take
woman.
place. Yeah, exactly, because the captain's a woman or it took
Because the
place outside
captain's
the
black
Iroquois.
can't be yeah, this isn't Star Trek because they're at a space station, which actually I thought too, because I was like, how did they, I thought at the time, and also before I did the rewatch, I was like, how are they going to tell stories when they're not on a ship? Like
Uh,
how, I wasn't saying it wasn't Trek, I was just really
yeah,
like trying to wrap my mind around like, how could they do this? And then I watched and I was like, oh, the adventures come to them easy, they easily do it, it's not hard at all.
you
It's
know
not
what's
hard at
crazy
all.
for me? What's crazy about D Space Nine is it hits incredibly home for me because everyone talks about their TV dad of the '90s, right?
Yeah.
Uncle Phil and the Huxtables and all that
Yeah.
type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
My TV dad was Ben Cisco,
So many people's
like,
TV dads were Ben Cisco. So
and,
because who doesn't want to be Jake Cisco?
right. And he didn't even pressure Jake to go into Starfleet. He just
Not
was
only
like,
did he
"Hey, you can go
not
to
only did he
Starfleet. You
not
gotta go
pressure
to
him,
Starfleet."
not only did he not pressure him, he was like the most ridiculously supportive parent in the history of parents. Jake could have
Right.
said anything, and Cisco would have been like, "All right, son, I support you." You're like,
Yeah.
what kind of parent is this? This is gentle
Let's be
parenting
real here.
in Deep Space Nine.
Wasn't there that situation where Jake was dating that older woman and Pops was like, all right, take care of yourself. Just like,
Do you
what?
know? I was tripping on that one. I was like, why is he dating like a 24-year-old and he's 16? Like, what in the actual F?
Jake,
And
Jake was pulling them.
Cisco finds out and he's like, well, I don't love it, but it's okay. Let's invite her to dinner.
Oh, the 90s. Oh, the 90s.
But it was perfect because Jake figured it out on his own, right? Like it fell apart like it was going
Yes.
to. Had
Yes.
had Cisco pushed, then the two of them would be married today, right? Like he
It's
he
true.
did the right call of being like, I'm gonna let you make your own mistakes. Like I don't love this, but I'm gonna let you make it. I would not have made that call. I'm not a parent, and maybe that's a good thing,
Mhm.
but I would not have been able to be like, that's okay, kiddo. 24 is not that much older. I would have lost my freaking mind. Yeah, he was
Yes.
so supportive, so supportive. And then even like the thing with Nog, he was like a surrogate dad with Nog as well. When he
Yes.
was like, I really want to go into Starfleet. And Cisco at first was like, no, because you're up to some kind of quirk level tricks. And Nog
Right.
was like, no, I really want to do this.
Some, yeah, schemery.
Yes. And then he's like, all right. And that became like kind of his mentor and just so sweet. Like, yeah, who wouldn't want Cisco as their dad? I get that.
What's crazy about the TV dad complex is he never gets mentioned on any of the lists. Avery
Mm,
Brooks gets almost completely forgotten in the sort of greater lore context of Star Trek. And I hate that because to me, Deep Space Nine glues it all together. There's a nice, rosy, optimistic view of the future done in TOS and TNG. And I think even in Voyager a little bit, they sort of get back to the optimism of discovery and sort of putting the human touch on the great outknown, right? But D Space Nine wasn't that at all. D Space Nine was these are everyday average Starfleet officers trying to go through a war. And as a person
plus
who's a
the
combat
Bajoran
member, it's
officers
like,
who just came off a
huh?
war, plus the
Right.
Bajorans who are like coming off a war, ready to go to war again.
And the thing how it hits to me is like you see the war weariness of Cisco and Bashir and O'Brien and all these
O'Brien.
people during over that time that you don't really get to see in Picard and Crusher and Riker until the Picard series, right? And then you
Well,
see the wear of them.
well,
So
you can't see that because, and we could just do a whole thing on DS9 since I'm like so up on it now. But the whole thing about DS9 that was different is that they decided to do long form storytelling instead of being episodic, which was the Trek way. So when you have something that's episodic, you have to hit the reset button at the end of every episode. Your characters can't grow and change and develop because they need to go on new adventures every week. And one thing's got to be consistent. Either the characters are consistent or the storyline is consistent, right?
right.
So because every week it's a new monster or a new adventure or whatever, the characters are very limited in their growth in TOS, TNG, any show, even not Star Trek, that is episodic. But if you're going to have something that has long form storytelling, then you have the ability to have your characters grow and develop because they're going from point A to point B. It's not different monster every week. It's like, how are they changing based on what happened before? And that's something that DS9 had the courage to do. That three, what was it, season 3? I think it was season 3 that had the 3-episode opener or something, or maybe it's season 2. But I was like, what in the world? Because I was trying to go to bed, but I couldn't because I had to finish the episodes to get the
And you
closure.
realize there ain't no finish. Yeah.
I
Oh my
had,
goodness.
yeah. So I like that choice to be like, you know what? We're just going to tell a story. We're going to tell a multi-season arc story, and we're just going to go where it goes. Gave them the ability for their characters to change, because if you're going to have a story that keeps going, you need to change in that process. You can't be the same. And I think that's what gives it so much flavor and texture and richness as far as the character development. There basically is no character development in TNG and Voyager because they can't, because they have to keep doing the same thing every week. And so very few people are allowed to grow. Tom Paris is able to get just a little more mature. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. B'Elanna is able to get just a little more comfortable with being half Klingon, and that's it. But
Right.
you don't get these big changes we could have gotten if we told a slightly different style of story, at least in my opinion. But they're all great. You know, they've all got their benefits. But yeah, that was huge. And also because the actors themselves and the writers said that they felt like the unloved stepchild, they got the freedom to do whatever they wanted. You know, no one was
Right.
looking over their shoulder. So they're like, you know what? We're doing 6 episodes and they're all going to be connected. Like, they just.
Yeah. I love this idea though that because Deep Space Nine was such an outlier and it still sort of holds that position in Star Trek, that it seems to be the dividing line between where the purists say, I don't consider that Trek. This is not Gene Roddenberry's vision. Have you heard this before? The Roddenberry's vision. This is count, counter to Roddenberry's vision. And so
Roddenberry's
even with
vision
new Trek,
was not perfect. How about that?
no, no, and I kind of, an unpopular hot take. Outside of the creation of Star Trek, I don't think Gene Roddenberry built what we understand as Star Trek today. I think those credits go to people like DC Fontana and Jerry Taylor and Ronald Moore and Stephen Ira Bear
100%.
and I hate to mention him, but Rick Berman and like a lot of these people who created that stuff, in spite of what Gene was trying to do, because it sounds like Gene got in the way in a lot of ways. No
Yeah.
shade. But if Lucy would have been there to keep him in check, right? If Lucille Ball would have still been involved with she's the mother of Star Trek. He's the father for sure, but she is the mother. If she would have been there, and her money would have still kept him in check, they would have created what we know of, but it would have been, he would have still been involved in the way he wanted to be involved. But because he was such a nuisance and he had the lawyer situation and all that type of stuff, people just didn't like working with him, and his ideas were dated.
Yes. Which you can see so clearly in the pilot for TOS, right? In the cage, where it's just like having a woman on the bridge. How weird is that? You know, it's like, you guys supposed to be in the future. Like, think forward a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, just think. I mean, we're in a flying spaceship, but we can't have a woman having a job. Like,
Right.
let's push
Yeah.
the envelope. So I think, so we couldn't have anything without Gene Roddenberry, right? It's his baby, it's his brainchild. So I think he laid the foundation of what is possible, and that other people took that torch and then took it to another level. Had it stayed with kind of his pure vision, i.e., TOS or season 1 of TNG, I
Hmm.
don't think it ever would have become what it is now, because it wouldn't have had the space to grow. Because one of his things was like, I don't ever want the characters to have conflict. It's got to be this idyllic paradise. But conflict is what makes this story good. All stories, any story. So to not have conflict, he would always have to introduce a brain virus, a drunk virus, alien, infecting your brain to make you act different. Like, there has to be some outside force to create conflict between people, and then that doesn't ring true. Because if you have two people together, or even one person by themselves, there's going to be some conflict. And so, right, we're going to have conflict. So without that, you're just kind of like, I like this show, but it's just not, it doesn't hit you on that emotional level, because you can't relate to people who just have no problems with anybody ever. And the only people who are bad are the Klingons, or like the outsiders who are, the dark skinned aliens are the bad guys or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
that. So I think we couldn't have done it without him, and we couldn't be where we are had he stayed either. So it all worked out. It all worked out. People were able to take the baton and move it forward. And DS9 is the most human of all the treks because of all the war stuff. Because you're like, this is exactly how regular people would actually behave in these scenarios. This is what they would
Right.
do.
Well, had he had his way, we wouldn't have gotten Patrick Stewart as Picard because his idea was the future had solved for baldness.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine? Like, look, I'm not saying that because I think Avery Brooks actually read for Picard, so we might have gotten, a Hawk in space, 7 years earlier. But ultimately, it's like I couldn't imagine anybody not being anybody except for him being
Yeah.
Jean-Luc Picard.
Yeah.
And Gene Roddenberry was like, "No, I won't have him. He's bald." And did you see the audition? Did you see what I saw, Gene? Because apparently everybody else in the audition was like, he's perfect. And Gene was the only person because of the hair thing. It wasn't even because of the performance. It was simply because of the hair
Right.
thing. He couldn't get past the fact that the future would have solved for baldness, which more of a male insecurity thing, but whatever. You know.
100%. It's the same thing with Jordy being blind and it never being like a disability because he has a visor and he has heightened abilities. So they could have come at that as being like there is no blindness in the future. Blind people don't exist. We're going to erase blind people. You know what I mean? But instead they were
Right.
like, "Oh yeah, like we just have technology that gives him heightened abilities. Whatever." You know what I mean? I feel like that felt really inclusive and just honoring of people who are not the norm, whatever that is, instead of being like, you need to change. Also, do you remember that episode? It's called, I think, Loud as a Whisper. It's the guy who's deaf and he's got the chorus and they all like speak for him of like whatever he's feeling. This is a TNG
Yes.
episode. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
when my co-host did the deep dive background information for that episode, she found out that they thought about getting a hearing actor to play that role. And in the end, the deaf actor would learn to speak. And then somebody spoke up and was like, well, that sends the message that there's something wrong with being deaf and you need to be fixed. And you're like broken and it's better if you can speak. And they were like, how about we just have a deaf actor who's deaf? And then the other characters need to learn how to communicate better. And they were like, oh, yeah, let's try that. And and I love that episode, like for that reason, because what a much better message. So I think Gene Roddenberry, that was definitely like just his own insecurities. But I love the fact that Patrick Stewart's bald and Jordy has a visor and that Ambassador was deaf. And it's like we didn't fix people or solve people. We allowed
Right.
people to be themselves and provided any assistance or support that was needed. I don't know. I just think that's like I don't know if that was super intentional or just like a happenstance that it turned out that way. But that's one of the things I love about Trek. That's where
Yeah.
it feels like I fit in, that like this is for everybody. Everybody fits here.
Yeah, it has a way of making the non-conventional accepted. They would normalize things. Like I remember there was a throwaway line in Deep Space Nine, and of course I was 15, 16 when I first heard this, but it was like there was a character and they used the male pronoun, but they had referred to the character as getting pregnant, right? And so for all the people who talk about like, well, Star Trek just became woke, it's like they were talking about men getting pregnant in Deep Space Nine. Like that's not new, you know.
Yeah.
You can hate the culture change all you want to, but you can't say Star Trek is somehow trying to pivot to appeal to people. That's never been. Star Trek's always been way out ahead
It's
in
always been
front.
woke. Yeah.
Right. But to that point, they've always used inclusive language. They've always used terms that make people feel accepted. They've always treated disability with care, special needs with care, same-sex relationships with care, end of life care with care. They've
Aging.
all aging, right? They've always sort of taken, say what you want about the rest of the entertainment world. Star Trek kind of has always done it in the most progressive and accepting sort of way. And I feel like Deep Space Nine doesn't get enough credit for that, especially when it pertains to all the other Star Treks and all the other stuff that they did on their own.
Yeah, I mean, having skipped it all the way up until recently, it was just this last year that I watched the whole show. I will say that it just I missed it. It never occurred to me. And then I was like, fine, everybody's going on about how good it is. I'll give it a try. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. I just feel like everybody just missed it They just slept on it. It's kind of like do you know that movie The Emperor's New Groove? It's the Emperor, like that Disney movie, right? I love that movie, and I had the same feeling about Emperor's New Groove that I have about Deep Space Nine. Like when it came out, it had very little hype, very little marketing, very little fanfare. I think I saw one billboard. It went into theaters and came right out, and I saw it like way later on TV, and I thought it was going to suck because nobody, like, it was getting no hype and no love. And I watched it and I was like, this is genius. Like I was laughing out loud the entire movie. And I was like, why didn't this win all the awards? Why hasn't everybody been talking about this everywhere I've been going? Like, why am I not, and I feel like that about Deep Space Nine. Like people watched it, but why didn't it get at the time, why didn't it get everything it deserved then? Like,
I have an answer. I think I have an answer because The Emperor's New Groove came out after Pocahontas, right? That was Disney's last. So if you think about the run Disney was on, and you can put this in Trek parallels because in the 80s, I mean, outside of what Star Trek 3 or whatever, or 5, whichever one everyone has the issue with, maybe it's 4, the one with the whales. Anyway, Star Trek kind of had a pretty good run. The motion picture has aged very well. Wrath of Khan is a lot of people's greatest Star Trek ever. Journey Home is a great one. Undiscovered Country, like those are good Star Trek movies. And then you're coming off of TNG, which you can never reinvent a classic, but they kind of did it. Now you have a legitimate case of like the Next Generation crew versus the TOS crew. And Deep Space Nine had to follow that. So I can understand people being like, I don't know about that, bro. You following two classics? Yeah, I'm sure you are. You know, right? I'm sure. Let's chill out for a second. That's why it was probably easier for people to jump to Voyager because the expectations of following TNG probably wasn't as high. And then on top of that, they ran concurrently. So when
yes.
TNG was coming out and sort of ending and going into this movie phase, Deep Space Nine was just catching its stride. And a lot of Star Trek fans, I remember, were like picking between the two. Like they had to choose. You didn't
Yeah.
have to choose. But back then it was like, well, this is more truer to Gene's vision, and this is where Star Trek wants to go. I would hear that too, right? So
Mm.
yeah, it's unfortunate that Deep Space Nine is the redheaded stepchild of of of
Of
Trek.
Trek. I know because it's so good. It's so good. We're all sleeping on it. It's so good. But I will say, like, that kind of has that whole philosophy and thinking of Gene's vision or whatever has rebooted with New Trek. Right. Again,
Right.
it's like this isn't real. Every time I make a video, let me tell you, Gray, I'm sure you've experienced this. Every time I make a video that even mentions Discovery, even in passing, I'm going to get dozens of comments that's like, that's just fanfic. That's not real Trek. Blah, 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 blah. It ruined the original vision, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, it ruined the original. And then the thing too with Discovery, and don't get me wrong, like it wasn't my favorite, but I liked it. Like I liked it. I watched all of it. It was fine. The only reason it wasn't my favorite is because it was too much crying. That was my issue. I did not like all the crying, but I wasn't like, you're ruining the vision of the, like, come on. But one of the things that they did, like when they went to the future in Discovery, I thought this is
Mhm.
genius because now they can just let go of all lore, make their own way, just like Voyager could do, because they went to the Delta Quadrant. They can let go of Ferengi and Klingons, and they can do new aliens and new storylines. But they went in a whole different direction. Like they went to the future, and then it was like trying every episode to tie back to TOS or to tie back to the old shows and to try to stick with canon. And I felt
Right.
like that was because fans were so much like, this isn't real Trek. And it was just like, dude, you're ruining the whole, like, you're missing the point. You're missing the whole point. This is future. This is future. Like,
Right.
let's see where they can take us now. It's like a different era. Let's see where they can go and what they can do. And I also feel like a lot of the hate for Deep Space Nine and for Voyager is the same exact hate for Discovery. And I feel like it's because there's a black female captain. And then people are, pushing all these other things underneath of like, oh, but also this other thing and also this other thing. But that doesn't seem accurate. Not only that, but also the inclusion of transgender actors who are acting their gender. They're not like the hearing actor who acts deaf, right? They're not doing that. And a lot of people were like uncomfortable with that. And again, it's just kind of like the same rhetoric from before of like, this isn't the real, true, whatever. And you know what? I just always say, well, sometimes I get irritated and sometimes I have a lot to say. But for the most part, only when people go like a little left field. For the most part, though, I usually just say, you know what? There's so many Star Treks. There's something for everyone. So if this is not your cup of tea, go ahead and get a different cup of tea. But there's no reason to like hate on it and tell other people how dare they like it and they shouldn't like it and it doesn't count and it's not really canon and blah 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 blah. Just be like, that's not my cup of tea. Maybe you're in the TOS era and you think that Star Trek died in the 60s. That's fine. You enjoy those 3 seasons to your little heart's content. And I was
Right.
telling you, Gray, off camera, that so many people I've met over these last few years have been introduced to Star Trek through Prodigy, through Lower Decks, through Picard, like through stuff that, I mean, imagine coming into Lower Decks, which is all Easter eggs, and you've never seen any Star Trek ever before, and you love it so much that you become a Trekkie. That to me is just the best thing ever. And why would
Right.
I ever say it's not real Trek? Like if it's growing the fandom and more people are being introduced to this epic franchise, I am here for it.
Then that's why I wanted to interview you, because I'm always interested in people's journey to that point. Because to me, it's to become a Trekkie is something different in my opinion in culture, as opposed to, just being a fan of something. Like sports fans, they become fans of sports team. I know I'm a fan of certain sports teams, but it's not the same with Trek. I'm a fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was big fan of Donatello growing up. It's not the
Same.
same. Um, I'm a big fan of Stargate,
Mm,
Battlestar, Sliders,
so good.
Outer Limits. Not the same. And there's something, a special itch that Star Trek scratches that is primal and fundamental, that I'm always curious about how other people get there, and how some people almost miss it, because you find people and they're like, yeah, I tried to watch it. Nah, it wasn't really. And I'm like, how? How is that even possible? Right. But one thing, we started talking about newer Trek, and we sort of skipped over the sort of missing link between those two eras, which is the Kelvin timeline. Now, I'm not sure where you kind of were in your life when Star Trek was on its hiatus, but I remember that time. And I remember like wanting more Trek. And I heard that this new movie was going to come out. It was like 2006, 2007, or something like that. And I remember thinking, like, wait, the guy who did Star Wars is going to do Star Trek? Like, how's that going to work? Right. But I actually didn't hate those movies.
Oh, I
Like,
had so much fun. I had so
yeah,
much
they were
fun. I
good.
went to the theater for all of them. And like again, if we really look through the storylines, maybe they're not all the best storylines, but I didn't really care at the time. I was like, Star Trek, woo! Like I was
Exactly.
just enjoying
Exactly.
it.
I I would take any trek I could get. And at that point, it wasn't such a deviation. I knew I was only going to get 2 hours of, essentially. My only issue was, why are we going back to TOS? Why are we
Yeah.
going back to the TOS era? And
Yeah.
I had the same problem with Discovery, which is like, why are we going back to the
Why?
TOS
Why not
era?
go forward?
Why not go forward? Why not post Dominion War, post Voyager returning? We could jump easily back. This is why people want, legacy so much. But what was your opinion on the Kelvin timeline?
I had so back when I watched those movies. This was long before I had a podcast, long before I had this sci-fi community, this Trek community. So for me, I just thought it was fun to have more Trek. It was just, and to me, like we had been doing reboots for at that point 10 years, 20 years. I don't know. It felt like everything got rebooted every few years. So I was like,
Yeah.
woohoo, Star Trek reboot. Like it's a whole new thing. Let's just do it. I didn't have any connection to TOS. So it wasn't like it was hurting my fundamental beliefs of Star Trek in any way. I was like, oh, neat. Okay, check this out. Like I was here for the ride and I just enjoyed it. I actually liked it so much that I have a virtual headset. And I got my mom one and we can watch movies together, even though we live in different cities. So we watched like one or two of the Star Trek movies on the virtual headsets a couple years ago. And it was like just as much fun because you go into the virtual headset, it's like a virtual movie theater, and you get to pick the theater.
What?
Like, yeah, it's so cool. You can be like a
Wait
theater
a
in
minute.
space, or like,
Where is this watching Star Trek with people virtually thing? Where can I get on?
so the headset that I have is an Oculus. I think it's owned by Facebook.
I
Um,
got one.
okay, so there's an app in there called Big Screen. Big Screen. So if you go on the Big Screen app, it's also connected to like Netflix and all these things, but you can actually rent movies in Big Screen and you can watch it either like you can go watch public things with people, or you can watch it in your room and invite people who have an Oculus to watch it with you. I think up to like 12 people or something. And you go, yeah, it's like, and you can pick different theaters. Okay, so now it's just a commercial. So Meta, you need to sponsor this. But you could pick different theaters. So you could be in like a campground or a really nice apartment or like a regular theater. And so me and my mom would take
Spaceship?
turns picking theaters and just like watching movies together. And uh we watched Star Trek Beyond and I think one of the other ones, and it was just magical. Like it was just fun, big
Oh,
screen,
shit.
lots of explosions and cool outfits and great makeup, and it was just fun. Like one of my Trek tuber friends, what she says is sometimes you just need to turn your brain off, like and not be critically analyzing everything and just enjoy it. And I feel like that about those movies. Like I just enjoyed them, but I didn't critically analyze them. So maybe I would like them less if I really dug into them. But yeah, I had no problems.
Yeah,
I had no problems.
yeah. I didn't have a lore. There's some people who are so attached to lore that it will get in their way of enjoying just a good story, good
Yeah.
movie. It doesn't really matter if it's lore accurate, right? I feel that way about certain franchises and certain things. I remember when Battlestar got rebooted, and remember they made Starbuck a woman.
Woman, yeah.
Remember, oh, the heavens fell because it was like, why would you gender swap Starbuck? It was a
Oh, she was
dude, and
so good. My favorite character was Starbuck.
Katie Seagal. Yeah, Katie Seagal. She killed it, right? Um, but to me, it was like this sort of idea of you can be so glued to lore
Yeah.
that you miss out on an opportunity to enjoy it just a good story. And if you can just separate it from your attachment to the lore, oftentimes you just will enjoy it more. Is it one to one? There's some things that happen in season one of Discovery that a lot of people hated with the look of the Klingons and all that type of stuff.
It
Did
was
it affect my
confusing. I
ability
will
to
give you that.
like the show? No. It just was one of those things where I was like, okay, there were some things they did in the Kelvin timeline I didn't like. I mean, the whole relationship between Spock and Ahura. I'm like, where
Mhm.
did this come from? But okay, I'll go with it. And it was a pretty good story.
Yeah, same thing, and I think I'm, like, usually the one railing about good stories, um, so because like, with this last season of Strange New Worlds, me and some of my Trek tuber friends over on Best of Trek, Worst of Trek, every Monday they do a live stream. And so we were doing a live stream about Strange New Worlds as each episode came out. And like some of the episodes were good, some of them were not as good. But I remember the seasons being so strong up until this one. And so I just kept being like, the stories just aren't good, but everything else is perfect. The makeup is perfect. The sets are perfect. The outfits are perfect. I'm not blaming the actors. It's just like the actual story. Just the story is not good. Like I want a good story. And I feel like the lore shouldn't get in the way of a good story, nor should the set deck. like tell a good story. Tell me a good story. Paint it up, paint it down. If it's a good story, it's going to stick and it's going to resonate. And like people are going to love it and they're going to think about it. And they're because that's to me is a sign of a good story when you're done reading it or watching it or listening to it and you're still thinking about it. And you're just like,
Yeah, of
wow,
course.
like, and
It
you're
sticks
applying
to
it
you.
to like, that's a good story. Or, maybe it's something that's really funny and you every time you think about it, it makes you laugh. Like that's a good story. So yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
good story is above all other considerations in my book.
So okay. So then let me ask you this question then. So in between, let's say the Kelvin timeline movies and Discovery, there was a what, 8 years or something like that? Did you read any of the books? Did you read any of the? You never read any of the
I have
novels to
never
get the
read
folklore?
I have never read a fanfic book. Apparently there are a lot, and I was getting some recommendations, and I started one at one point, and then I was just like, I don't like this. But no, I have not read. I also have not played Star Trek Online, which apparently fills in all of the questions that have been left over from any Star Trek ever. um,
Well,
but no, I mean
I don't know
that's what
about
I've
that.
heard.
I don't
Every
know
time I
about
have a
that.
question, they're like, it's answered in Star Trek Online.
Yeah,
Um,
let me just say this because there's like a soft lore in Star Trek Online that people it's more interactive, so you can interact with the story of Star Trek a little bit more. But there's also in the novels, there's a whole season 8 of Deep Space Nine. There's like
oh, did they make
season
that into a
eight, like
novel?
yeah, there's like 6 novels that all connect into like what would be a season 8, and there's
Wow.
even part of like a season 9 until they kind of like changed writers and changed publishing houses and stuff like that. But they tried to continue Deep Space Nine and Voyager. There's a season 8 of Voyager in novel form where it's called Homecoming, and you find out that like spoiler alert, it's been out for 20 years, but you find out like Harry Kim gets recruited to Section 31, and
Yes,
Lizzie
let's
was
go,
like,
Harry.
yeah, yeah, it gets crazy. So if you ever get a chance to want to just dive into some soft lore of Trek, I think the novels are great.
Yeah, I might try the there's so many fanfics out there, just so many, and it's so subjective as to whether or not they're good. And books take a long time to read, which I love reading books. I read like a couple books a week, but I also don't want to read a book if it's not good. Like or if I'm not going to enjoy it. Good's relative. So, yes, if you can give me your personal recommendation that these are enjoyable and they're already connected to DS9 and Voyager, I feel a lot
Yes,
better than just like random Joe Schmo made this book about Star Trek. Like I'm not as
for
compelled
sure.
to read that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me ask you this question. What are your thoughts about, did you ever watch Star Trek Continues? Like that fan, so there was like a fan made TOS Continues. It was like seasons 4, 5, and 6 of TOS, but it was done and it was really professionally done. If you ever get a chance, you should watch it because if you're into TOS now, I think you'd really appreciate the production value of Star Trek Continues. It's like, it's dope.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Added to my mental list.
Yeah, and I know you say you didn't play Star Trek Online. Do you play any Star Trek games?
No, I've only played two. I got one on my phone, which maybe it was Star Trek Online. I don't know. But this was years ago. An app came up and I was like, what's this? And I downloaded it on my phone and I had my own ship and I could like, go on battles or whatever. And I was like, okay, let me just play around with this a little bit. 4 hours later, I looked up and I was like, what's going on? Like the sun had set, my battery was about to die. And I was like, all right, this is way too addictive for me because I literally just lost track of my entire life with this game. So
Mhm.
I deleted it immediately. I was like, I cannot be trusted with said game. The other game I've played is in the Oculus. It's called
Mhm.
Star Trek Bridge Crew, I think.
You
Um,
play Bridge Crew?
yes, not successfully. The Klingons or the Borg always take me out. They always take me out. My ship absolutely explodes. I don't know how many levels I've gotten through, but not that many levels. But it's so fun. It's so fun.
Oh, that's so awesome. Well, I have an Oculus and I have Bridge Crew as well. And I never really got a chance to play it. I play a game called Star Citizen, and it is outside of when it is not working like it was not today. We have a whole crew called the Unified Federation, and we have these giant ships that we all pile into, and we pretend to be Star Trek. It's pretty awesome. Um,
That
what
sounds
I've
really
done is
fun.
yeah, because I created an org that was built around the Federation style principles and just the way they interact, their department structure and everything about it. I'm prior military, so it was easy for me to sort of create that structure. And it's interesting when you try to play Star Trek games, every now and then they'll try to come out with a game, but recently one came out about Voyager, and it's
Yeah, I
called
saw
Star
that
Trek
trailer.
Voyager Into the Unknown. Yeah, and I was playing it the other day, and it's like a puzzle game. It's
Oh,
kind of cool. Yeah,
okay. Well, I
it's
can
the
get down with
running
that.
around space stuff. Yeah, it's
I saw
not
the
crazy.
trailer and I was like, this looks like a game I will absolutely suck at. So, but puzzle
No.
games I'm very good at. So,
Yeah, because you're already a Trekkie, so you already know what the objective is. Keep the ship running, right? So you already know that you got to make sure your engineering is running and have crew and engineering and living quarters and having a sick bay and a mess hall, and you kind of know how a starship operates because you've been watching this now your entire life. So it just plays on your fandom. If I was not a fan, I would probably not like it. The only reason I think I enjoyed it is because it's a Star Trek game. And if it wasn't, I'd be like, I'm not interested in this. So
you know what? I want to plug one more game now that you mention it. But that's what
yeah.
that's the whole reason why they put Scooby Doo on cereal, right? It's not because the cereal's awesome. It's because of the fandom. It's because of the love of that thing. So that's enough to make the game worth purchasing for a fan. Another game I've played that I just remembered is it's a game by this company called Modifius, which makes role playing games and tabletop games, and it's a solo role playing game called Captain's Log, and it comes with this rule book. It kind of like it's like Dungeons and Dragons, basically. It's Dungeons and Dragons, but instead of Dungeons and Dragons, it's Star Trek. And the rule book is like it's got everything you could ever think of. It's got every alien species ever encountered. It's got all the ships. It's got all the everything, and you can play it by yourself or you can play it with a group. where you kind of like you roll your dice and you go through different scenarios with the ship and, you know, see what happens to the ship as you go along. So I have played that, like the solo version, which it's really hard to play a Dungeons and Dragons game by yourself, but I wanted to give it a try. So I will
Oh,
also for anybody who's watching who is like a D&D fan or like a role-playing fan, to check out Modifius. They have a bunch of nerdy games like that. And they have that one's Captain's Log is like kind of everything, but they also have Strange New World stuff. They have some Lower Decks stuff, like different kinds of, I think there's a Lower Decks card game or something. So yeah, that's another thing that I've played that was fun. Intense,
okay.
involved, but fun. This
Oh,
Voyager one
yeah.
sounds like maybe something I could do though.
I will definitely check that out. I saw an ad for that, and I did not know that it was as cool as you're making it sound. So now that I do, I'm definitely gonna check that out. I know we got about maybe 15 minutes left, and I wanted to ask you about your opinions about New Trek because we kind of barely touched on Discovery, but there's so much to talk about: Prodigy, Lower Decks, Strange New Worlds, Picard. Go ahead, it's all yours.
Okay, here we go. Okay. So when Picard came out, when I heard Picard was coming out, and I started seeing posters and stuff on, you know, ads or whatever, I was like, oh no, they're gonna ruin my childhood. They're gonna bring back something that I absolutely love and adore and make it terrible, and then they're gonna like color my entire view of this thing that is like rose-colored glasses, you know, and I'm gonna be so sad. So then I was like, I'm not going to watch it. So then I can preserve the memories behind glass, right? And then it came time for it to come out, and all the Star Trek groups that I'm in were like, let's all watch the premiere. And I was like, major FOMO. And I was like, I have to watch the show. I can't be the only one who doesn't know. So I started watching it, and oh my gosh, great. I loved it. I loved it. I know a lot of people had problems because the storyline's ridiculous. Like, it very much feels like they're making it up as they go. Like, each episode, they're like, I don't know, what should we do this episode? It definitely feels like that. But for fan service alone, I was here for it. Like, the first episode when Picard goes to his storage locker or whatever and pulls out the Captain Picard Day thing. And I mean, I was just like, oh my gosh, I remember all of this. Like, and what kept me going through season, and it was very action packed. Like, I love Dodge so much. The tech was
Yeah,
very cool. The special effects were very cool. I wanted to know what was going on. And now there's synths and like, what is that? And like Tal Shiar's.
yeah.
I mean, I was just like, the Romulans and the Borg and the cube has crashed, but there are some Borg, but they're ex-Borg. I mean, I was just like, what is going on? Which I don't think was their goal, but I was invested in the mystery of every episode going in a different direction. I was like, maybe I'll figure it out by the end, which I didn't. But I like that. But I thought I would. The only thing that kept me going though, like the thing that kept like niggling at me was I was waiting to see some of the TNG cast members, not necessarily to come back as main people in Picard, but I just assumed that they would be friends forever. So like there was one scene where he called some random doctor about his condition or whatever, and the doctor was like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry to say blah blah blah." I was like, "Well, this could have been a great moment for him to call a friend, like an
Right.
actual, like literally anyone, and just be like, "Hey, I just got this news." Like I'm just anything. Like I just wanted to see a face, you know. And I didn't get that, and that was kind of a bummer. So then when season 2 came out, I was like, "Okay, here we go, season 2. Like I'm going to see somebody in season 2." And then they like went back in time to 2024, and I nearly turned the tables over because I hate it when, I mean, I guess hate's strong, but like the more I go on, the more I get irritated when Trek goes back to present day, because I
Right.
don't watch it for present day. That's what I watch normal stuff for. I watch Trek for future, for like space stuff. I want to see like where humanity could be. I want to see
I,
potential things.
I will say this: it felt like CSI Star Trek season two. It didn't it a little bit? CSI, like it was got that shine, that
It
sheen
felt
to it.
like it felt like CSI. Yes, it very much did. I do. I also love CSI. That's a really good comparison actually, because CSI is so formulaic and cookie cutter and like kind of goofy, kind of silly, like kind of
Yeah.
ridiculous. But you know what you're going to get in the end is going to be satisfying. That was season 2. It was very like goofy, and I mean, and like I almost just walked out when we got to the heist episode, and it was like, all right, you're going to be the spy, and I was just like, okay, none of you guys have these skills. Like I just don't like what is going
Yes.
on here. And but the only reason is I was watching this with friends. So we were watching every week. So once again, I felt obligated to watch this show that I was like not into anymore because they made me mad on so many counts, and like the Confederation and everything. I was just like, I'm not really into this, but whatever. Watched it all the way through, got through it. Then I was like, I have finished this. I'm finished with this. So when they were like, we're having season 3, I was like, that's nice. I will not be joining you for season 3. Season 2 just like burned me. season 1 I was so excited, and season 2 I was so unexcited. So season 3 I just feel like you've like lost my trust. But then they were
Mhm.
like, we're bringing back the whole old crew because we heard you guys complaining about it for 2 years. So then I was like, fine, I'll watch it. Like now I'm obligated yet again. You're playing on my heartstrings as a fan. You know I have to come and see what Worf looks like. You know I have to come and see what Geordi is up to now. So yes, I'll be there. I'll be there. So yes, I showed up for season 3 and I actually really enjoyed it. They definitely try to do a lot of Easter eggs very purposefully. Um, seeing Moriarty again, who's one of my favorite characters, just all the little things was fun. So I was like, I'm here for it. So that was that. Then Discovery came on. I like Discovery, like I said. I had no problem with the Klingons looking really weird because we also introduced the Universal Translator, and I was like, how neat is this? This is how it used to work. You know what I mean? Like I also felt like I was happy with it. Um, Also same feeling of like they don't know where they're going with this exactly, and so I was just like, I'm just here for the ride.
Right.
So my big thing was when it just started turning into like every time we see a character, they burst into tears. And that's really a me thing because I'm not as connected to my emotions. But I was just like, why is everybody crying on this ship? Why is everybody crying? Like, let's solve the problem.
Yeah.
That kind of started to drag a bit. It was very dramatic. It was like the soap opera ist. I mean, I don't know.
Well,
DS9 was pretty
I
soap
will
opera
say
too.
this about that because I was a big Stargate fan and I love SG1 and Atlantis. And then when Universe came out, I felt like I was watching Dawson's Creek in space. And this felt like that first season and a half felt like until they basically brought on Pike, it
Yes.
felt like Dawson's Creek Star Trek or
This
Party of Five Star Trek,
this is what
right?
I'm afraid of with Academy. I feel like Academy is basically supposed to be party
Gilmore Girls.
space. Like,
Yeah,
have you seen the trailer? I was like, yeah, this is 90210 in
it
space.
is.
This
It
is what this
is.
looks like. And so
I,
I'm kind of like, I like 90210 because I watched it as a preteen, but I'm a grown up now. I'm like super grown. So I don't know if I can get into the teen angsty like level.
yeah,
I don't know if I'll be able to enjoy it, but I'll
I
probably be
want to
obligated to
like
watch
it.
it.
I want to like it, but I want you to continue. But the one thing I will say about the season, just Picard in general, before you go on to Discovery, is I think the character of Raffi was a nice surprise. That scene where she's smoking weed on the planet or whatever, and he comes up and she just hits her vape, and she's like, and I love that Star Trek had this sort of thing where she was a fundamentally flawed character from the jump. She's got a strained relationship with her child. She's kind of a drug addict. Like she's
She's a
on
mess
the
up.
edge.
Hmm.
Yeah, and she's a washout, and she was still a part of the post Enterprise Picard crew, whatever that mystery is, right? We'll come back to that in 100 years or whatever. But to me, it's Raffi was a Michelle Hurd. She really feels like she's a part of that cast. At the very end of Picard season 3, when they took that picture and Seven and Raffi's in that picture, and you're like, wow, they really feel like they belong there. Like Jack's in the picture, Raffi's in the picture, and Seven's in the picture, and they all feel like they belong. Even when you take the LaForge sisters,
Hmm.
they feel like they belong. So you do have this legacy connection between the TNG originals and then the Picard season 3 legacy setup, which we never got, but But go ahead. Discovery season
Yeah.
season 2. Pike comes in.
Yeah, I call the crew of the La Serena the island of misfit toys because they're like all the Starfleet rejects, and they bonded together to make their own Starfleet, right? Like all of them have somehow either washed out, been kicked out, something's happened where they're just like not typical Starfleet anymore, but they can still
Right.
work together to like solve to do a mission, to do their missions. Um yeah, so whatever. So overall, on average, Picard was like, because I like the first season, I like the third season. Second season happens between the two, so on average, I liked it. Discovery, on average, I liked it. Like there were some times when I was like, ugh, like I love Giorgio, I love Michelle Yeoh so much. And then when Giorgio got written off the show, I was like, again, ready to turn over the tables. I was like, what the heck? And they're like, oh no, they're gonna give her her own show. And I was like, all right, all right. And then they're like, psych, it's gonna be a movie. Ah, I was like, dang it.
Okay, I gotta
But
ask you. I gotta ask you. How did you feel about that movie? I mean,
I
did you
felt
try to watch it?
negatively. I felt negatively. Actually, what's interesting, it's kind of like two movies in one because we get the prequel, like the origin story of the Empress, which I found actually really interesting because it was basically Hunger Games, right? So I found that part interesting. And then we got kind of like, Giorgio and Ocean's 11, kind of like we got a heist movie. We got another heist movie. Like we got to steal the thing we got to go to the casino. Like we kind of got the heist movie. And I thought that was kind of dumb. But thinking about it afterwards, I was just like, you know what? Had they done, because I don't know what the original vision for Section 31 was as a show. I assumed it would be an episodic where they're doing missions and cool stuff. Like that's what I pictured. That's what I would be here for. I would watch every show.
Every now and then or something.
Yeah. And they would just like, you would never know what mysteries they're up to, what crazy stuff they're getting up to. They're doing everything the non-Starfleet way. Like, I think that would be so fun. So I don't know what the original vision was, but after watching that movie, where I did watch it with some friends, and we were just so like at the end, we were so confused. I was like, this didn't make sense because, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Section 31, there's like a doomsday weapon that they're trying to get, but we're like, they originally had this doomsday weapon, like this was already theirs, and they stole it to steal it back. And then it was like, in the end, the only person who could activate this is Michelle Yeoh by physically touching it. So just don't touch it. Like, don't, like, this is like the fundamental crux of the entire movie is this doomsday device can only be activated with her fingerprint, like with her like her physically touching it. Just don't touch it. Why are we even, like, I don't know. Well, anyways, I did think later on though, that first part, that like the origin story of the Empress would have made a dope movie. Like if that was the whole, if it was just like, why is Giorgio the way she is? And that's the whole movie. Yes. And you start out with her being a kid.
They started with that idea.
And then took a turn because I guess people wanted, because it was called Section 31, not the history of Giorgio. But had it been, I think it would have been extremely successful. Like if we just kept going with that theme of like, and then this horrible thing happened, but then she did this even more horrible thing, but then this other horrible thing happened to her, but then she did something even worse. Like, and we just keep seeing her build.
She ate a Kelpian, and then it was like,
and the Kelpian was like her nursemaid, the same Kelpian who raised her since she was 10. You know what I mean? Like something like that, where you're like, she ate her own nursemaid. Dang, like she served her for dinner. Like, and they just kept making like the atrocities match kind of like what's happening to her, so that you feel sympathy for her because you have to for the main character. But also you're like, yeah, but you're a terrible person. And then in the end, like the very end of the movie, she joins Starfleet or something. Like she gets sucked through whatever, then you'd be like, aha, I see what you did there. That would have been cool. How did you feel about it?
Okay, so I watched maybe 20 minutes of it and literally turned it off because I just
didn't even finish.
No, I mean, I watched the origin scene and then maybe the sort of introduction of a couple of characters, and then I was like, I didn't even finish it.
But that introduction you experienced is what the rest of the movie feels like. It feels like that. Slapsticky, silly, nonsensical. Half those characters die like 20 minutes later. Half of them die. And you're just like, why did we even introduce these characters? First, 20 minutes was not enough time for me to love this character to be sad that they're gone. I'm just confused. Yeah. I'm just confused. No. Like, yeah.
And my thing is, the Michelle Yeoh character is Giorgio, and I'm not talking about Captain Giorgio that Burnham was like
the Prime Universe captain.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Empress.
Yes, Empress Giorgio, right? The one with 17 names. Like she was legit, and I love the chemistry between her and the Discovery crew that you said cry too goddamn much, and she would come up and be like, "Hey,
get it together,
get it together," and everybody was
have a job to do.
Like, yeah, she really did have that. Like, hey, the galaxy is a bloody place. She was more Q of Discovery than they might have wanted to let on, because I think Q's whole idea was humanity's not ready for the grotesqueries of deep space, right? And so Giorgio was like, listen, there are empires out there that make the Nazis look like children, right?
She's like, I ran one. I know.
I ran one, right? So her whole thing was, I am a glimpse of the worst possible result, the worst possible eventuality. So I think Giorgio as a character is captivating, but what they tried to do with that movie was unforgivable.
Well, apparently my friend, one of the friends I watched it with, told me later on that apparently they couldn't even get everybody there at the same time for filming. So Michelle Yeoh filmed that entire movie separate from the rest of the cast, which you actually can't tell. Like you can't tell at all when you watch it. It looks like they're all in the same room. So I gave it a few more points for that. That was very
That's
resourceful. I couldn't
unfortunate.
tell.
They blew such a good opportunity because what they could have done is had Michelle Yeoh open this Section 31 Pandora's box and then bring in Bashir to hand it off because she's too expensive after everything everywhere all at once, right? Like
Yes.
she's so expensive now that okay, we're gonna give you your payday and then we're gonna write you handing it off to an established character and we're gonna use that to push a series. See,
Or
we
like
should
it's
own
future
Star Trek.
time. It's future time, right? So like introduce new characters. I'm fine with that. Introduce new characters, but just I don't know. I feel like the world, and this is also something I didn't know until watching Deep Space Nine. I did not know that Section 31 came from Deep Space Nine. I assumed it came from TOS, and I just never saw it in TNG. And then as I was watching, I was like, wait, is this the first time we're ever seeing this? Oh my God. Like, oh, I was so enthralled with the whole concept of Section 31 in Deep Space
So,
Nine. I was like, who are these people? What do they do? Where are they coming from? Where's their oversight? And then they try to be like, oh, they were shut down hundreds of years ago or whatever. And I was like, oh, so they're like running game on even Starfleet. Like, who are these people? So I'm like, even after seeing the origin of Section 31, I'm even more hungry to see a Section 31 storyline. Like, I really want,
right.
I just think it's so, and it wouldn't be Star Trek. It wouldn't be Star Trek in the sense of like, we're a federation and we're going out to spread our morality. It wouldn't be that. It would be the opposite of that, right? It would be like Suicide Squad, Star Trek version. That's what it would be. It'd be like we do what we want to do, what we, think is best for us to move forward our agenda. And I don't know. I still am just like so fast. I just think it's such a great idea still. Even though what the execution was what it was, I want to do
In
over.
order for
I
you
want
to
to reboot.
but here's the thing: in order for you to do that, you need Amanda Waller character, and you had that with Giorgio, right? They had the Amanda Waller from Suicide Squad. I can't remember what the woman who played her. She was also in The Woman King. I can't never remember her name.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
uh, Viola Davis. Oh, who
Viola
am I?
Davis. Yeah, you need that type of character to push that to have that type of show. Like you need that strong base type of character that will center these stories. But I mean, the writing still has to match the casting. Like you still have to write a good story, dog. Like
Ooh, great. Let me tell you, since you didn't watch the rest of the movie,
I didn't.
let me
Please
just tell
spoil
you
it.
the writing, there was just like scene after scene. Me and my friends were just like, what's going on? Why did they do that? Why did that happen? There's a scene where I think they just really wanted to see Michelle Yeoh fighting, and I'm here for that. So like, yeah, let's do that. But also, I mean, too, like, make the story make sense. So there's this one part where she's fighting with some bad guy, and they're fighting through like in this like mine. There's like a mine shaft. So they're fighting in the mine shaft, and they're fighting on a platform that like goes through the mine shaft to take you from place to place or whatever. So they're fighting, and somehow the thing gets activated, and then it flies into the air. So now they're like thousands of feet in the air fighting on the top of this like this moving thing, and you're just like, okay. And then as they come down, like there's parts of this planet that just like extrude fire. There's just fire. Like there's just fire coming up while they're walking. It's just like fire, and you're like, is this volcanic or is this like where's the fire coming from exactly? And it's like, and I was like trying to not be nitpicky, right? I was trying to just enjoy the story, but like these inconsistencies kept being like, but why is there just fire everywhere? Why are they 10,000 feet in the air doing karate chops? Like, why did it go up there? Like, or just so many moments where you're just like, what's going on now? And then like the fight just, I don't even think I think like one guy just like beams off, and then Michelle Joe just like beams off too. And you're like, okay, well, so we didn't need to fight on top of that. We could have just fought anywhere. Like, what was even?
And to think we didn't get another season of Discovery for that, and we also got Starfleet Academy because of that Section 31 movie. So I hope they're happy, whoever made that
I
decision.
hope they're happy. I think it was like it reads to me as a series of unfortunate events. Like it has to have so many things in the background that went wrong for that movie to exist, because they had that really cool beginning part and then no connection to the second part, and then this really crazy second part that was really bad, and neither of those parts had anything to do with what was originally promised for the Section 31 storyline. So I just feel like something happened behind the scenes and a lot of things all went wrong, but for whatever reasons they pushed through and made the movie anyways. I don't know. I'm not on that side of the business. So I don't know if that did more harm than good for everybody, but
Oh, I'm sure it harmed more than it did good. Okay, so let's switch over to the final two sort of properties before we get on out of here. So you can take your pick on Prodigy or Lower Decks. I'm sure they both hit you in different ways. For me, I gotta say that the greatest iteration of Star Trek we never knew we needed, but now I'm so glad we have is Lower Decks, because what that did for the franchise was something that was always needed. First of all, it made me think that, hot take, Star Trek was always supposed to be in animated form. The
Mm,
fact that we got live action the way we did as early as we did is crazy work. It should have always been a cartoon. It would have been the greatest cartoon of the 70s, 80s, 90s. It would have been the Power Rangers of its day, right? Like, to me, the fact that we got this version of animated, and not even mentioning how beautiful Prodigy was, but just how artistically symmetrical and fun Lower Decks was, and then the humor of the dynamic between Mariner and
Boimler.
Captain Freeman, because
Oh,
I'm a
Freeman.
huge Don Lewis fan. I don't know if you were, a Don Lewis fan in a different world and those sort of days, but what's your thoughts? So I'll let you pick whichever one you want to go to.
Yeah, we also kept skip Strange New Worlds. So I like boycotted Strange New
Oh,
Worlds because I was
that's
so like upset about Picard, because Strange New Worlds came out before Picard season 3. And I was like, I'm
true.
done with these new Trek things. They're just here to break my heart. So I watched that recently also. I think this year also, like I watched Strange New Worlds maybe before I did Deep Space Nine. And I super loved it. And I was like, okay, now I see what everybody was saying. This is good. This is really fun. I really enjoyed it. Um, so Lower Decks, I also talked a bunch of crap about because that came out right before our podcast or shortly after our podcast. So I was like, there's some animated series coming out. It's going to be dumb. I'm not going to watch it. Da, 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 talking all this trash. Watched the first episode and I was like, this is the most genius thing I've ever seen. It is absolutely a love letter to Trek super fans. If you
It
love
really
Star Trek,
is.
you will love Lower Decks, except for one of my friends who loves Trek and hates Lower Decks. But that's just because she does not like comedy in science fiction. She personally does not like comedy and science fiction. She also does not like children, or like children being the focus of a thing, like a show about children. She does not like that either. So like Lower Decks is like a two pronged attack because they're kind of like lower crewmen, younger people. So she's an outlier though. Like this show is so good. It's just my favorite thing ever. It's nothing but Easter eggs, but it's also got its own storyline, its own crew, its own. This is like the perfect mix. It has a lot of Easter eggs without being like we have to tie to canon in every single thing we do. It's more just like making fun of all these little things that Trekkies make. You can tell everybody on the writing staff actually knows and loves Star Trek.
Yes. Yes.
It's obvious because if they didn't, they wouldn't even be able to do the level of things that they're doing and the stories that they come up with, and bringing Tom Paris and the Kazon and just and Nick Locarno comes back, like all the things. You're like only a super fan would know these things. It's so good. Prodigy, I also had because I just said the 90210 in space is kind of like I don't know about Academy. Like I'm nervous about that. Same thing with Prodigy. I was like, ooh, I don't know if I want to watch like Nickelodeon in space. Like I'm kind of like, I'm not a little kid. I don't have a little kid, so I don't know who would be enjoying this. The first episode was fire, like so good. Probably the best pilot of all the Treks ever.
I
It's
agree.
so
I
good,
agree. I agree. I
so
actually
good.
agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, right? Like you watch and you're just like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's everything. And then a couple episodes in, it did start to get a bit angsty. And I was like, oh, this is why. Like, I can't do this. I'm a middle school teacher and a high school teacher. And so I can only get so much angsty teen vibes before I start getting like traumatic responses. So I was like, oh, I do this all day. I don't want to do this in my spare time. But I will say it kind of grew out of that because the characters grew, because it was long form storytelling. And man, season 2, perfection. Every episode, perfection. We got so much stuff about Voyager that I wanted to get because I love Voyager. And we got like,
Yes.
where are they now? They even connected it to Picard, which was
Oh yeah.
shocking. I saw what happened. We finally get to find out what happens. And we did see Will Wheaton in Picard, but we got to see him way more in season 2 of
Right.
Prodigy. And I just felt so satisfied. I just felt like this is everything I ever wanted. And then it was canceled.
Yeah,
So
and he said on that. He said he's Will Wheaton, and I love Will Wheaton. Will Wheaton's one of my favorite science fiction. Just I use this term endearing, but like mascots. He's one of my favorite science fiction mascots of all time, right? But the thing about Will Wheaton is he said he sat on that for 3 years. He recorded all of the stuff he did for season 2 back when he was doing the work for I guess another series or whatever, and it's just like, damn, I really wish Prodigy would have gotten its just due. You could say Lower Decks got its just due. It got 5 seasons,
It got
and to
5
me, girl,
seasons. Discovery got
that's
5.
good.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna take
that's
5.
finished
5's good.
7. Yeah, I'll settle for 7. I'll settle for 7. In fact, if they can give us one more season of Enterprise, I'll take that. But
Well,
to
but
your point,
but Prodigy had 20, like what, like 20, 40 episodes a season or something? It had a
Prodigy.
whole, yeah, it had a whole bunch of episodes a season. They were only like 20 minutes, but it had a bunch of them. I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna check. I'm gonna check while you finish your thought.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My whole thing is that I understand that it was meant for a particular demographic, and it was almost intended to do what the Clone Wars did for Star Wars.
Mm.
Now you have this brand new demographic accessible because you've formed your
Oh,
storytelling to this age, right? Um, but yeah, I was a big fan of Prodigy, and I love what they did with Wesley Crusher's character and the Traveler character and all that type of stuff. It's amazing. Well done.
oh
And
no, it
it's
was 20.
sad
It was
because
20 episodes, not 40. My bad. It was 20. It was 40
20,
altogether.
it's still a lot.
It's still a lot considering all the others have 10 episodes. Um, yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think Prodigy could have gotten more, but it also felt like the ending felt satisfying. Like it felt like it was supposed to end right there. So I didn't feel like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what's happening next? Why do we know what happens next? So I don't know, but yeah, I'm here for it. I'm nervous about Academy. I really am. Maybe amazing, but it may be a little too soap opera y dramatic for me. But I don't know. We're just gonna have to find out.
Well, hopefully we can have you back in a couple of months, and once it comes out, and we can talk about it. I did have something before we go. I had did something, and you can listen to it of your own volition whenever you want. But I had so I've been in music for my whole life, so I got into hip hop and all that type of stuff, and so I've been rapping about science fiction and stuff my whole life. And I put
And
together a
science.
comp.
I listened to one of your
Oh
raps about
yes,
science. I was like, let's go, because I'm a science teacher. I was like, let's go. Yes. Did he just say mitochondria? Something you said. I was like, yes, yes, yes.
did.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, what's interesting is I did a compilation video on my channel of all of my Star Trek references throughout my music career. And when you get a chance, I would love to get your thoughts on that because I feel like wordplay is one thing in hip hop that I've always appreciated. I grew up on Rakim and Cannabis and these people like that. So to be able to have wordplay involving Star Trek and my sort of fandom of Star Trek, I always get a chance to put a little bit of Trek inside my rhymes, and so I would love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah,
When it comes to
definitely.
that. Absolutely. Well, is there anything you want to promote and tell people how to reach you, how to reach your channel, and everything like that?
Yes, for sure. So you can find me on all the social media platforms except for Twitter. And that's nothing against Twitter. That's just because I don't know how to work that particular platform. You can find me on all the other social media platforms at the Sci-Fi Savage, where I do a bunch of just kind of silly Star Trek skits. You can also find me on YouTube every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific. I go live to talk all things Star Trek. Currently, I'm doing a series called Double Take, where I take 2 episodes of Star Trek from 2 different series that's basically the same exact storyline, copy and pasted, like The Naked Time from TOS and The Naked Now from TNG. And I just asked the question, who did it better? So I would love to see you on a Wednesday or on the replay.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be there. I teach on Wednesdays as well. I teach phonetic rhyme theory and private study and stuff like that. But I will definitely pop in and say hello. I would love to trade curriculum notes if you ever want to do something like that. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in because I've always wanted to have Sharice on. I watch all of her content and stuff like that. If you guys get a chance, go follow, go comment, go like. Make sure you go support all the other fellow Trekkies and science fiction fans out there because we just need the support. So. For everybody out there, I'll see you guys in the Discord. I'll leave the Discord contact links and stuff in the description. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace, peace.